Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 148, Monday, July the 31st, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, I want to talk about something a little bit different today. We've been talking a lot about the Obama brothers and a lot of other things going on, but I want to shift the focus a little bit and talk about something I've noticed in the last 2 weeks or so from President Trump. It appears to me that in the last 2 weeks he has changed his game plan as to how to deal with what is going on around him, which is, of course, the deep state coup. I think it has finally dawned on Trump, and I think he's known this for some time, that the Republicans are not on his team. They are definitely doing everything they can to make sure that they don't move through with his legislative agenda. They are doing everything they can to stand down and allow the Democrats to beat him to death with their hearings. You have a few honest members of Congress who are now pushing back, and now you have Donald Trump himself pushing back. You know, during the campaign, of course, he was famous for talking about, draining the swamp and throwing these criminals in jail, especially Hillary Clinton. Of course, we all remember the lock her up chants, which we do still hear at his rallies when he gives them. He just did one in Youngstown last week, and there were some lock her up chants going on. But it appears that what he did was, after the campaign was over, he kind of said, okay, campaign's over, it was dirty, it was nasty, all politics are, but hey, let's move forward and do what's good for the country. He made an effort to hold out the olive branch. He made an effort to bring the country together. He said, hey, I'm not going to prosecute anybody, I'm not going to push for this. Hey, let's just all try to get along and do something good for the country. But I think he has finally come to understand, especially with John Magoo's vote here this past Friday, that these people have absolutely no concern whatsoever for doing anything good for the American people, whether Republicans or Democrats. They don't care. I think it's finally dawned on him that these people do not give a lick about the country or anything else. They're totally self-serving people who only look out for their own best interest. And as far as the American people are concerned, screw them. They don't care. They just want them to come around and vote for them every 2 or 6 years. And other than that, they don't want to hear from them anymore. So I think that Trump has realized that trying to work with these people, and one thing he did to try to work with these people is he brought in a lot of people who were part of the establishment, part of the deep state, part of the Republican hierarchy, people who were anti-Trumpers. Reince Priebus was never on board with Trump until after he won the nomination. Sean Spicer was an anti-Trumper. And, of course, someone I'll be getting to here shortly, Nikki Haley was an anti-Trumper. So, and she's going to get him in some trouble. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I think he's finally realized that he's got himself, a few people around him he can trust, and his supporters. The problem is he's had too many people around him that he brought into his administration to try to reach out to the establishment and bring some of their people in so that he could, have some inclusiveness and try to bring them together, try to repair the damage that was done between him and the establishment Republicans. And also he's tried to reach out to Democrats. But as you can see, he is realizing now that these people aren't interested in playing that kind of ball. They have only one thing in mind, and that is they couldn't beat him at the ballot box, so now they're going to destroy him in office, destroy his presidency. I think this has now dawned on him. I think he's known it for some time, but I think he's been trying to give a fair effort, a fair chance to these Republicans in the Congress, to people in his administration, to try to handle things, including Jeff Sessions. But as we can see, he's realized exactly what many of us have been saying on our YouTube videos, which is that these people they're a different breed of person. They're not like Donald Trump. They're not like me and you. These are nasty, nasty, vicious people who are only into the politics of destruction and obstruction, and that they are not going to be willing to make friends, work together, or do anything good for the country. That is not what their game is. And we can see this because in the past 2 weeks we've seen Trump tweeting out this stuff about Jeff Sessions. Now, I think Trump likes Sessions personally. I think he likes him, and I think to a large extent he trusts him. Obviously, Trump thinks he made a mistake by recusing himself, and I do, as well as many other people. But I think that he doesn't want to fire Sessions. I think what he wants to do is light a fire under Sessions' ass and get him to get off his ass and actually take charge of the situation and actually bring some heat and bring some offense on the opposition, which is out to crucify Trump. I think he believes that Jeff Sessions is leaving him out there hanging out to dry, and he's not putting up much of a defense or an offense, and he is the person who has to do it. It's certainly not going to come from Mr. Rosenstein. Certainly isn't going to come from Mr. McCabe. Certainly isn't going to come from Mitch McConnell. Certainly isn't going to come from Paul Ryan, is it? You do have a few good people out there. You have Jim Jordan and a few people in the Freedom Caucus. And, of course, a couple videos, I guess 2 videos ago, I mentioned to you that they had prepared a document which they sent over to the Department of Justice requesting that they appoint special prosecutors to look into the Hillary Clinton Foundation, the Hillary Clinton emails, the Susan Rice surveillance, and several other issues, the obstruction by Comey and Loretta Lynch. Well, if you guys haven't seen the video, Mr. Chopra did us a very big favor. He dropped a link to a video which is about 8 minutes long. I believe it was on TowerGate video 146 or 147. You can take a look in the comments section. You'll see that Mr. Chopra has a link there. It's quite a short video, about 8 minutes long. You may want to watch it. It is basically, as I told you, they sent this letter, or this official letter, to the Department of Justice, the Freedom Caucus members and some other people led by Jim Jordan, wanting these investigations and special prosecutors to be appointed to look into this stuff. Well, what they did, and what you see on the video Mr. Chopra put the link to, is that they actually had this document read aloud by the Congress recorder, the woman who reads back the transcripts, kind of like a court recorder, but is done for the Congress. So you can watch that video and you can see the congressional recorder reading the document that was sent to the Justice Department requesting that they appoint prosecutors, special counsels, to investigate all these things that are not being looked at. And that was a very good move. So if you want to see that video, just go to, I think it's TowerGate 146 or 147. Look for Mr. Chopra's link, and you'll see the link there. Just click on it. It's about an 8-minute long video, and you can listen to the court recorder or the congressional recorder reading aloud this document that these members of Congress, the small few there are, who do have Trump's back, and who are interested in seeing some justice. So I highly recommend you look at that. But what we see is that Trump in the last 2 weeks has, again, I don't think he really so much wanted to fire Sessions or wanted Sessions to resign or what have you. I think he just wanted to light a fire under his ass and get him to do something to get the dogs off of Trump. He can't just sit there and do nothing. If he's recused himself from everything, he should resign. But if he wants to continue as Attorney General, he needs to take some action. Just because he recused himself from the Russia investigation doesn't mean that he can't do other things. The Hillary Clinton Foundation, the email investigation, the surveillance, the masking, the leaking. Now, Maura, one of our favorite commenters on my videos, made a very good comment here, I think, in the last video, where she stated that Jeff Sessions is going to be announcing later this week the finding of some of these leakers. Now, I'm not sure who he's got in mind. My guess is there are people probably in the Trump communications team, maybe somebody from Justice or what have you. The fact that Sessions is doing it means it may be people in the DOJ. I don't really know. We're going to have to wait. And see exactly who these people are. But clearly in the last 2 weeks, Sessions has gotten the message that the boss wants him to do something. And it appears that he is now following through and that he is now going to disclose some of these leakers. Now, what Jeff Sessions needs to do after he discloses these leakers, and I believe he will, is that he is going to charge them. He's going to charge them with crimes if they have committed crimes. And depending on what they have leaked, if they have leaked anything classified, those are crimes. So I do expect Jeff Sessions is finally being waken up. I think he understands that he needs to either take some action or step down. I think if he continues on very much longer, Trump will have to fire him. And I don't think Trump wants to fire Sessions. I think he just wants to get him to act, to take some action. And so maybe this is Sessions sending a signal that he got the message and that he is finally going to get off his ass and he's finally going to use the authority that he has as Attorney General to get cracking on some of this stuff. We'll have to see what he does in response to the letter that was sent to him by these members of Congress who want to see action, who want to see special counsels appointed to look into these crimes that we know have been committed. So we'll have to watch and follow up and see what he does there, but I think that we may be seeing Jeff Sessions finally waking up and realizing that he has to get in the game. He has to get in the game. Either get in the game or get out. I think that's the message Trump sent to him, and I think he got the message. We'll watch and see what happens. But we can also see that Trump got rid of Spicer. Now, he wasn't really trying to get rid of Spicer. He was bringing other people in. And I think Spicer didn't like that, so he took the walk. But let's remember that Spicer was someone who did not support Trump. He was not a Trump supporter. Let's also take a look at what he did when who he put in charge. Instead of Spicer being the spokesperson, he's got Sarah Huckabee. And of course, we can see from her performance in the past 2 or 3 weeks, she is a fighter. She's solid. She's very, very good. I like Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's demonstrated at this point she doesn't take crap. She is a fighter, and she'll get the job done. And so I think that is another signal that Trump sent. And of course, putting Scaramucci in there, I mean, he's a loose cannon. He's like Trump, maybe worse. And I expect he's going to make some mistakes. And he's already made a few. But I don't think Trump cares about that kind of stuff. I really don't. I think Trump wants fighters. I think he wants people who are going to fight back and have his back. And Scaramucci and Sanders are definitely two people who are fighters and will fight back. And as long as they do their thing and Jeff Sessions starts taking some actions, you could see this whole thing turn around. We know the Russian narrative is collapsing, and as we see more and more coming out about the connections between Seth Rich, the Iwan brothers, the DNC, and all these other things, we are beginning to see the situation is changing, and the tide is turning. So this is very good news. It's very good news. I think we need to stay very focused for the next couple of weeks and see exactly which direction this thing's going. But it appears to me that it's going now in the right direction. And it has a lot to do with the fact that I think Trump's just fed up. I think he's going to take the gloves off. I think this idea where he was going to sit back and try to make friends with these people, try to work with these people, I think he's realized at this point that they're not interested. And that at this point, it's fight or die. Defend yourself or go down. And I think Trump's decided he's not going down. That he's going to fight these people bare-knuckled. Exactly what you have to do. That's exactly what I've been suggesting now for weeks. Maybe Trump is watching my videos. I don't know. But I suspect that maybe a producer over at Sean Hannity is watching my videos, because every time I do a video, the next day on Hannity, they start talking about something I talked about in my video, even using my take. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But anyway, I think that this is a signal that Trump is sending, and I've been picking up on it. So I think that we may be seeing a turn in the tide. It may be going the other direction. And I'll tell you, there's some other things that Trump can do that he has not done, that he very well can do. And one thing he absolutely should do is that when they passed Obamacare, Obama signed an exemption for members of Congress, so that members of Congress are exempt from Obamacare. That's right, they're exempt. They don't have Obamacare. They're exempt. Now, this is something that our founding fathers would not have liked, and it goes against the very grain of what America is supposed to be all about, is that we don't have kings and queens. We don't have royalty. They don't get special treatment. The members of Congress should be subject to the exact same laws as you and I, and they should especially be subject to the exact same legislation that we're subject to. And most obviously, the health care, the ACA, Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, or whatever health care plan that they come up with next, if they come up with one. The fact of the matter is that Trump doesn't need a single vote in Congress. Not a single vote. With the stroke of his pen, he can remove the exemption from members of Congress to be exempt from Obamacare. And he did a tweet a couple days ago. I think it was Saturday morning, Friday night or Saturday morning. He did a tweet. I think it was late Friday night, early Saturday morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning. He did 3 tweets. One of them, he suggested that he's looking at the exemption. Now, if you want to get Congress on the stick and get them to do something about the health care situation, remove their exemption and force them to be under Obamacare. This should happen anyway, regardless. They should not be exempt from any law that they pass that the rest of us have to follow. I think Trump would be looked at, even many Democrats, liberals, progressives, libertarians, everyone would love it if Trump removed the health care exemption from the Congress. Everyone would like that. No one could possibly say that's a bad idea. Everyone would like the idea, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, that Congress has to live by the same laws that we have to live by, and certainly by the same laws they pass for us. So I think that Trump should, first thing he should do Monday morning when he gets up, he should break out his pen, sign that executive order, overturn that exemption that Obama signed, giving members of Congress exemption from Obamacare. He should have Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, and Senator Magoo on Obamacare by Monday night. That's exactly what I would do. You want to start playing some hardball, put those members of Congress, including Senator Magoo, on Obamacare. I promise you, Senator Magoo won't be walking around going, yeah, let's see Trump make America great again now. Yeah? Here's how I can make America great again, Senator Magoo. He can put your ass on Obamacare. How would you like that? You'll be dead before you see a doctor the next time. Or the death panel will take a look and go, well, you know, old Senator Magoo, he's 81. He's got some issues. Nobody really likes the guy. He is an a-hole. What the hell? We can't afford to spend that kind of money for treatment he needs for his cancer treatment. He's 81. He's basically done anyway. Screw it. Just let him die. That's Obamacare. I would have Senator Magoo on Obamacare by Monday evening at dinner time. Exactly. His ass would be at the VA hospital. Exactly where he would be. Or he would be trying to find an exchange in his area. That's exactly right. They can certainly afford it, but they won't like the health coverage. They won't like the health care, I can certainly tell you that. So that's what he should do. Monday morning, wake up and sign that exemption. Or sign the executive order removing that exemption for members of Congress from Obamacare. That will get him on the stick. Yes, sirree. He could also end the bailouts of the insurance companies. These subsidies that they're getting. He could sign an executive order, because that was also done by executive order by Obama. He could overturn that executive order, and all those subsidies that the insurance companies are now getting will be stopped. This is one of the things that's a key issue in the healthcare issue right now, that many members are opposed to, these continued bailouts to the insurance companies when they make hundreds of billions of dollars. They don't need these exemptions. It's what's really ruffled Rand Paul's feathers. It's one reason why Rand Paul is so opposed to all this. He doesn't want any of these subsidies for the insurance companies. Well, Donald Trump could end that tomorrow. Now, that would be tricky if you did that, because you probably would see the complete implosion of Obamacare in about 24 hours afterwards. So that would be tricky. I don't know if I would do that. I would let the Congress fight over that, because Obamacare is going to naturally collapse anyway, because they can't agree on the subsidies. I would allow the subsidies issue with the insurance companies. I would allow that fight to occur with the Congress. Let them pay the price. Let it be their asses on the frying pan getting cooked over that one. I wouldn't do that. I would let them take the heat on that. But I would certainly do something that would be very, very popular, and that would be I would remove that exemption from members of Congress from Obamacare. CNN, let's have an update on them. It's funny, I don't know if many of you follow Mike Cernovich, but CNN was recently out in California doing a CNN live panel discussion with Jake Tapper. They were even offering free food. Oh, they had a nice stage set up with the professional lighting, and they bought the whole deal, probably spent a bunch of money, and they had all these chairs out there for people, thinking they had all these people. So Mike Cernovich, who doesn't live far from there in Pasadena, decides that he would show up and see exactly what was going on there. He shows up and finds that nobody showed up. Nobody cares about watching Jake Tapper and CNN do a live show. They don't want to be in that little audience. I mean, even if they had a chance to ask some questions, they apparently no one interested. Not even offering free food. You know what? When you offer free food and you can't get people to come and watch you, you really are at the bottom of the barrel. So there you go. Jake Tapper, CNN's panel discussion. It must have been quite embarrassing for him. Nobody there. Plenty of seats. Lots of people walking around looking. Nobody interested in listening to Jake Crapper and his propaganda machine. Sorry, Jake. Get a new job. Now, one last thing I want to focus on. There is a tripwire that I've been looking at here for several months now that's concerning me some, and it's that the neocons are also participating in this takedown of Trump, and there's many different programs underway to take down Trump. One way that they could do it is to get him to have a gigantic foreign policy blunder, and you can see that the neocons are feeding him this propaganda, constantly wanting him to have tough talk on North Korea, especially North Korea, but about Iran as well. And of course we have a neocon who I despise, who he appointed, again, I think to try to make friends with the Republicans. He should get rid of this woman immediately. Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley needs to go. She continues her ridiculous propaganda at the UN, trying to talk tough on North Korea. They're trying to get Donald Trump backed into a corner where he makes all these threats, and then at some point they force him to try and back it up. Same thing Obama got into trouble with when he did the red line thing in Syria. They're trying to do the same thing to Trump, because nothing could destroy his presidency more than a failed excursion into Iran, and especially North Korea. Now, I've done 2 or 3 videos and told you why there will not be a military option in North Korea or Iran. I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, but I will tell you that he is tweeting and talking about and using some of this language that you're hearing coming out of Nikki Haley, who's being programmed by the deep state, by the neocons. They are trying to get Trump suckered into this deal where he can make these threats, and then they can stage some sort of a false flag operation and try to force Trump's hand, so that if he acts, he creates a massive quagmire that will destroy his presidency. If he doesn't act, then they can come out and say he's weak on this, he's weak on Russia, he's weak on this and that, and that it can be used against him. What Donald Trump needs to do is he needs to think this through very carefully. Hopefully he watches my videos and realize exactly what I've stated in my 2 previous videos, that the neocons are baiting him. He better be very, very careful how he gets set up in this deal, because the fact of the matter is there is no military option for North Korea and Iran. None. There are things you can do defensively. You can, put anti-missile systems where your allies are. You can do these types of things, although South Korea and Japan have not been willing to bring in these types of systems, it doesn't seem. We know China's not on board. We know the South Korean is not on board for any type of military action. The only way that you could justify military action is if they did launch on you first, which they're not going to do. Yes, they're both pursuing nuclear weapons, because they've seen what happens to countries who run into conflict with the United States who do not have nuclear weapons. You get your country bombed. You get your leader decapitated. You get your country destroyed and ruined. Now the problem is that when you break it, you got to fix it. That's what happened to us in Iraq. That's what happened to us in Libya. And it would have happened in Syria had the Russians not stepped in and created a stalemate. So you would think that Donald Trump would look at this, and I know he wants to look strong on the world stage and foreign policy, but I think that this requires a bit more thought, because we are talking about, the neocons are talking about the type of response that would have to be probably full-scale war, hardcore, or even nuclear option. This is not an option. It's not. And to be out there, for Nikki Haley to be making these threats, she should be fired immediately. I would never have appointed her. She's a neocon. She's not on the team. She's an anti-Trumper to begin with. The fact of the matter is, my friends, here is the realistic options for North Korea and Iran. They're probably going to develop, well, North Korea already has a 1940s, 1950s style atomic bomb. They probably have several of them. They probably are going to develop some sort of a advanced type nuclear weapon, which they probably will develop an ICBM that can deliver it. I mean, they can already deliver an atomic weapon to Tokyo, to Seoul, to Beijing, to London, to Paris. They can already deliver a nuclear payload to these places. I don't see them an all-out, hairy, scary, threatening nuclear war. The idea that North Korea or Iran, even if they had these weapons, would launch a nuclear weapon against us or anybody else is just it's not realistic. I just can't imagine that. They would be destroyed. It would be suicide, worse than suicide. It's not going to happen. The only thing that them getting a nuke does for them is it keeps us from attacking them, and it gives them a lot more strength and positioning and negotiating on foreign policy issues, which is what the real truth of the whole matter is. It's the fact that we don't want them to be any stronger in their negotiations. I don't think anybody in our military seriously believes that North Korea or Iran, if they had these types of weapons, would actually use them offensively or certainly launch an attack on us. They would lose badly. So as I've stated in previous videos, there are some, difficult, low probability options for North Korea. But even if you were successful in decapitating the regime in North Korea, now what do you have? You have a completely broken country of 25 million people who do not know how to care for themselves, do not even understand the world they live in. This will be a refugee crisis of biblical proportions, both for China and for North Korea. And they would look at us and say, you broke it, you deal with it. And we would have a major, major issue which we simply could not deal with a refugee crisis, a humanitarian crisis of biblical proportions that we would not be able to deal with whatsoever. We don't even speak their language. We don't know how to communicate with these people. They are completely living in practically in the Stone Age. And this is one of the great reasons why China and South Korea are not on board with regime change. It's because what happens after? Who's going to deal with the aftermath? It's the aftermath that is the problem. It's not the problem of could you take out that regime, although there is the issue of how fast you could do it, because if you don't do it pretty quick, you're going to have 5 million people minimum probably killed in Seoul, maybe a couple million in Tokyo, before you can get to all his weapons. It just simply isn't a realistic scenario as I have laid out. And the truth of the matter is, the only solution to North Korea and Iran, which is the same solution for all of our adversaries, and it's always been the only solution, it's the only logical solution, it's the only practical solution, it's the only real solution, and that is what the solution has always been. And that is that you must make sure that you're 20 to 40 years ahead of these people in your technology. We have to make sure that as North Korea and Iran are in the process of trying to develop a nuke, one which they can deliver on an ICBM, we must make sure that we have a system that's 20 to 40 years ahead of them that's capable of knocking out that system, of defending against it. The only rational, realistic response we have to North Korea or Iran or any other country that gains nuclear weapons that could at any time be friend or foe, the only solution is to have a better weapon than they have. If they have an offensive weapon, we need to have a defensive weapon that can render it useless. Now, we've been working on these space-based weapons for a very long time. I would be very surprised if we don't have weapons up in space which are designed to knock out intercontinental ballistic missiles. I'd be very, very surprised if we do not have that system. Maybe it's never been tested. Maybe they're not sure how well it works. But that's where they need to focus. If President Trump wants to do the right thing here and not get caught and not get backed into a corner and not get tricked and forced into a situation that is a no-win, what he needs to do is he needs to get with his military and science people and he needs to say, okay, what we need to do is we need to make sure that if we don't have it now and we don't have it perfected, we need to put all of our energies right now into perfecting the system that we need to counter any offensive weapons launch by North Korea, Iran, or anyone else, the Russians or anyone else. This is the only solution, is to come out with is to have a weapon that will counter their weapon. This is the only solution. An attack on Iran or North Korea is foolhardy. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Having all this tough talk about everything's on the table, no, it isn't. A preemptive strike on North Korea or Iran is not an option. They need to quit saying that. I'm getting tired of it. And I don't take anyone seriously, and it troubles me to see Mr. Mattis, General Mattis, saying this. I thought he was smarter than that. I wish I could have a conversation directly with Mr. Mattis, because I would tell him exactly what I just told you. Stop dropping this bullshit on us. It sounds good. It makes you look tough. I understand all that. It's propaganda. We all do it. But if you're serious, don't have the president out there saying that kind of stuff. And Nikki Haley needs to have a sock shoved in her pie hole. She needs to be taken out of her position completely. She's a disaster. She's a neocon. She's a never-Trumper, and she's embarrassing herself, embarrassing me, quite frankly. I should be in her position because I would not be saying the things she's saying, and I would not be advising the president on this. I would be telling the president that your only solution, sir, in the problem with North Korea and Iran, build a better weapon. Have a defensive capability that counters their offensive capability. That is the only solution. We should already be 20 to 40 years ahead of them in this technology. They're just now developing an ICBM. We've had them since the 1970s. We've been trying to develop these space-based type weapons, anti-missile defense systems now since the late mid-1980s. I would like to think that we have some of these deployed in space. I would like to think that they've been tested to some degree, and if they've not been, if they're not perfected, now is the time to step up that program. Perfecting our defensive missile capabilities is the solution to the problem. It is the only solution to the problem. So to Nikki Haley, stop it. To General Mattis, stop it. And to Donald Trump, President Trump, be very careful. It's a trap that they're laying for you. Don't walk into it. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been TowerGate, day 148, Monday evening, July 31st, 2017. July 2017 is gone, 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 gone. I'll see you in August. You guys have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.